cattle feeding. He's the general manager at XIT Feeders in Dalhart, Texas. So he's got a little short presentation that I think you guys it'll interest you a lot.
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. Great crowd. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate John and Jeannie asking me to come over and talk to you guys. This is probably one of the more favorite parts of the job I get to do every day. I've got a short little presentation here to talk about the cattle cycle, and my wife has got a stack of slides. I obviously don't have enough for everybody, but if you'd like a copy, she'll get you a copy. This is probably the 6th or 7th year we've done this, and it's just great to see the growth and the involvement in the industry that comes out of this sale. The genetics that you guys are trying to buy here today, we in our business and the feed yard business appreciate. Those are the kind of cattle that we like. If you have cattle that you're interested in marketing to the company, please contact Jeff, and he'll get you to where you need to be and help you get to the right area, the right feed yard that has the right program that'll fit your cattle. And it's I can't tell you how much we enjoy feeding these cattle. We've got a lot of history with them, and it's cattle that we try to buy every year. And people ask me all the time about feedback on my cattle. And I said the easiest way to get feedback on your cattle is if the same guy's buying your cattle every year, you're doing something right. So these are the kind of cattle that we try to buy every year, just to appreciate that. And I can't express that enough. I did not bring the win from Dalhart, so don't blame that on me. But anyway, we'll get through this. And I don't want to talk down to anyone, and I don't want to talk over anybody's head. So if you've got a question, please ask me, and we'll stop and we'll talk about it. But everybody understands that our market, our cattle business market, works in a cycle. There's highs and lows. There's lots of cattle and there's few cattle. We're headed into a time, obviously now, to where our cow numbers are going to be low. And that should be good for our business, right? The fewer numbers are, the more money we should get. Is it the same every time? No, absolutely not. But there are some things that are consistent that we can use to our advantage to maybe project or maybe predict what prices are going to be in the future. Is this an exact science? No. And there's going to be some numbers in these papers that are going to make your eyes bug out, and I'm not guaranteeing that that's what's going to happen, but if you look at the data and listen to the data, it sure could. So we'll just pile off into this. So I'll talk a lot about the Central Plains. Central Plains is from Texas to Canada. The big chunk of the cows that are in the U.S. are in that section of the U.S. There's 52% of the cows in the U.S. are in that part of the world. So keep that in mind. That's important. There's cattle in the southeast. There's cattle in the west, but the bulk of the cattle are in the Central Plains. So, and everybody understands what conditions we've been living with in the last 2 or 3 years and why we're headed down. Has anybody got any guesses as to why cow numbers are down? It's pretty simple. It hadn't rained, right? I know some of you guys up north are buried in snow, and I feel sorry for you because those are miserable days. But us down south, it's a different story. And we're still dry, and we're going to be dry for a while. So that forces people to get rid of their cows. I grew up in the southeast. People are even liquidating cows down there because feed got too high and cows got too high, and they didn't want to fool with them, so they sent them to town. So just remember that we're 52% of the cows are in the central part of the U.S. So back in January, the beef cow supply report came out, and there were 28.92 million head of cows in the U.S. 28.9. Let's call it 29 million. Just be round numbers. And then there were 15 million of those cows were in the central part of the U.S. So the most recent cattle cycle, the peak in the cattle cycle that we had was in 2019. And those cow numbers in 2019 were almost 17 million head, so it was about 53% of the cows. So from 2019, which was the high in cow numbers, we've liquidated about 1.8 million head of cattle out of that. That's a lot. 1.8 million cattle, almost 11%. So 11% of the cow herd in the Central Plains is gone. That's a big deal. And if you think back to the last cycle that we were in from 2014 to 2019, remember I told you some of these numbers were going to make you think. We had culled about 11% of the herd. So remember that number. Remember, 11%. We've gotten rid of 11% of the cows. So what does that mean? There's fewer calves, right? If there's fewer cows, there's fewer calves. So what can we learn from that? So if you think back to that cycle, that earlier cycle, back from 2009 to 2015, we eliminated 11% of the cows. What do you think calf prices did at the end of that cycle? They were higher, right? So there's fewer cows, there's less calves, there's more demand, calves are higher. So calf prices went up 133% from the bottom of that cycle to the top, okay? So when there was a bunch of cows to when there was fewer cows, calf prices went up 133%. So remember what I said earlier? How many cows have we liquidated here in the last 4 or 5 years? 11%. We're back to the same number. We're right back to where we were in 2014, 2015. So what can you garner from that? Am I saying that calf prices are going to go up 133%? The data says it, right? So what does that mean? So there's when the gentleman that put these slides together sent me this, and I started looking through them, and I'm saying, there's no way I'm getting up in front of those people and telling them calf prices are going to be almost $4 a pound. But if you think about it, it could happen. One thing to remember is that we're starting out this cycle. Our low on our calf prices aren't as low as what they were back in 2010. 2010 we were selling calves between $1.20 and $1.30 a pound. We're way above that now. So will the same percentage increase happen this go around? I don't know. The world's considerably different. The economy's considerably different. We're just in a different place. But it could happen. I guess what I'm saying is that we're headed into a potentially a really good time for the cow-calf guy. A really good time. This should be a fun, enjoyable time of our markets. So what could hamper that? What could hold that back? What are some things that might not let what we just talked about happen? Feed. We gotta remember we gotta feed cattle. If we struggle, if this corn crop struggles this year, which it could, I'm sure some of you people are from the Eastern Corn Belt. It's wet and cold, and that's not good for planting corn. And we're hot and dry and windy in the Central Plains. The North's buried in snow. That's going to have a big effect on our markets, our calf markets, and our yearling markets, and our fat cattle market. So, just think about this. Here's an interesting thing that I really like. So think about, for every 50 cents per bushel change in corn, cost of gains in a feed yard are going to go up 50 to 60 bucks a head. 50 or 60 bucks a head. So 50 cents up in the corn market, your break even goes up 50 or 60 bucks a head. For every 50 cents down, it goes down 50 or 60 bucks a head. A 50 cent move in the corn market anymore is not uncommon. So think about that. Remember, the volatility in this thing can really get to us. So take advantage of the things that are out there that can eliminate some of that. Corn market, just a 50,000 foot view. We're kind of thinking corn somewhere between 7 and 4. That's a typical analysis that says that, because he's probably going to be right, because how many times has corn got outside of $4 and $7? I think, if we get off to a good start with the corn crop, we're going to be fine. We're looking at a $5 corn crop, a $5 a bushel corn, depending on where you're at, depending on basis, blah, blah, blah. And you take all that into consideration and the other stuff into considerations. You look at that chart again, and they're talking cap prices in the upper 280s to $3, which is probably more realistic to me. So, and that'll be an average for the year. So there'll be times when it's higher and times when it's lower, but somewhere in that range looks to be okay. Now, we all know our cost of productions are terribly higher than what they used to be, but we should be able to put a little money in our pocket here. So I've rambled on enough. If you've got a question, I'd be glad to talk about it. Anything, markets, whatever you guys want to talk about. So, but again, I appreciate the opportunity to get to come and speak to you guys, and this is fun part of my job. So, but anyway, thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, want to thank Gene. I think it's always enlightening to have you here, my friend, and give us a perspective on the real world, what's going on, and always appreciate you guys being involved with what we do here, and we want to thank you again for taking your time to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, again, it's our pleasure to have you come to the GBar. It's always our pleasure to have you here, and we want you to know that we appreciate your time. We appreciate your interest in this program and what we do around here. And no greater compliment is paid to us than your attendance here and the hundreds of people that are online to participate and take these genetics home. And so without further ado, we got a few introductions to make, but no greater than to introduce to you my good friend, Miss Jeannie Griswold.
Thank you, Jakey. I think I'd just like to continue on what Jakey says. It's always a humbling experience to see people here. As you guys know, we had this out in Texas for a long time, and I think that the weather decided today that it needed to blow like it does when we're down there in Follett. Got to get all arranged, all of our last-minute things up here. John picked me up at the airport 13 years ago and drove me down to clip his bulls in Shattuck, Oklahoma. That wind blew 90 miles an hour, and it was about 105 degrees. Vanny was clipping heads. He cut his pants off at his knees so he'd have a little bit of air. And it was